Welcome to our eighth part of our Evangelism Academy, Evangelism 2, the practical outworkings of how we share our faith. This part of our course is about discipleship. There's I'm not sure if you've read it before, but there's the whole thing of the Great Commission. You can find it at the end of Matthew 28, and then you can also find it pretty much exactly the same with a slight couple of differences in Mark chapter 16. Jesus says, "Go into all the world and make disciples of all nations," and there's this thing of some people would say Jesus never said to make converts. I beg to differ a little bit. There's twice, I think, in Scripture where we're told to go and make converts, but the big story really is that in order to be a disciple, we should be making a disciple, because like the way I see it, Jesus asks us to be like him. That's what it means to be a disciple. So to be a disciple means that we start acting and behaving, doing the same things as what our master does or our mentor does. So if Jesus made disciples, then you'd expect that to be a disciple means to make a disciple. So all of us should be making disciples. What does a disciple mean? What does it mean to make a disciple? A disciple is someone that you're essentially mentoring in the things of faith. So you may walk with a disciple or a mentee for a little while or a long while. I would suggest that if we're to be like Jesus, then we should probably be walking on that journey for 3 years or so, maybe longer. Certainly in today's culture, I think a lot of the time it takes men like 5 years to choose to follow Jesus. When they see someone who is following Jesus wholeheartedly, it often takes about 5 years apparently for men to go, oh yeah, I want some of that. I'm going to sign on a dotted line. I'm going to follow Jesus. And then there's the whole thing of discipleship afterwards. So we personally here in Lincoln, we have a routine, we have a process. Someone chooses to follow Jesus, and then usually I, as a senior pastor, will begin to disciple them. And the reason I do it as a senior pastor is because I want my culture, my vision, the way that I see church sort of forming. I want to be the person who puts all of that stuff into our new converts. I want to be able to show them what I see church looking like, and sort of help them to be enveloped into the church culture and the way that we do things and the way that we see things. So that's the reason that it's always good for the senior pastor to be leading the charge on discipling new believers. So how do we do that here in Lincoln? We have a short book. I did have one round here. We've got a little booklet which I wrote called I think it's 10 mentoring. It's a 10-part mentoring program. Each week or each session, we go through the basics of the Christian faith. We talk about things like our testimony. We talk about baptism. We talk about giving. We talk about worship and the Bible and prayer. We talk about the basics of Christianity essentially. In some other churches, they will do a thing called the Alpha Course, which the Alpha Course is essentially meant to be like a beginner's course for Christians, people that have recently become Christians, want to know more about the faith. That's what the Alpha Course was originally written. However, in recent years, since it's written, actually, I think most people have been using it as an evangelistic tool. I don't think it's an evangelistic tool. I think it's more of a mentoring discipleship tool. People that are already thinking about going on a journey with Jesus would be the ones who would do the Alpha Course, and it would be successful amongst those people. So the Alpha Course is good. We have a course here in Lincoln that we do, which if you're part of our team, if you're part of our church, we train people how to use this book and how to do this course, so that you can do it with other people. Mentoring and discipleship, though, isn't a 10-week thing, and it's not like meant to be done quickly. It's something that happens over a long period of time. It's done over years. And so if you're going to be a disciple of Jesus, firstly, you need to make disciples. Secondly, you need to take your time with that. T.D. Jakes, a preacher in America, once did a talk about what it means to come into church culture. And he talked about a building that is the church, saying that people are the bricks. He said that as you build a building, what happens is you might put one layer of bricks down in a corner, and so this corner, I'm not sure if you can see that, this corner is built up, and so it might be that the corner of your house has like maybe 5 years experience, so it's 5 bricks high, and then the next corner may have 6 years experience. So you're thinking of corners, your pillars, as people in your church. So in our church we have Malcolm, who's been a Christian for like 30 years, so he has 30 years experience of being a Christian and walking the faith journey. So you can imagine his corner of the building would be really high up. And then in order for him to be that high up in terms of building bricks, the people around him should be, in a normal church scenario, the people around him will be leading up to that, because I'm not sure if you've ever seen a corner of a house, but they go up in incremental stages. So if I'm at this place, then someone near to me would have to be at this place, and someone near to me would have to be at this place, someone near to me would and it sort of spreads out. Now, hopefully I'm creating like a picture in your mind of the corner of a house where it's almost like a triangle, whereby someone's doing really well in their faith and has been walking it for a long period of time, and then it fizzles out to people that are maybe just coming into the faith and are only 1 brick high. What tends to happen is the more people that we have in the building, or in the house of God, the more people that we have in our community that are higher up and been doing it for longer periods of time, the higher the natural sort of base level of the building is. So if it's a small building with let's say 30 people in, and 10 people have been following Jesus for 10 years, then you'd expect that the gaps in between those high places will naturally have to be quite high up. So when someone first comes into church, they start off just there. Okay, so I probably should have done some sort of diagram for this. Maybe I'll add one in later on. But essentially, if everyone else is at this place, and as the incremental bits come down, we come to a place where where brand new Christians come into a church where the natural culture is already 5 bricks high. Then that means that what happens is, when someone comes in and say they smoke, for example, the church culture around them says, oh, maybe you shouldn't do that. It's not good for your health. Maybe someone might come in and they may be a little bit maybe unstable emotionally, and then the church culture, because it's like it's a mature culture, turns around and says, oh, that's not a good behaviour. Let's stop doing that. And it's quite natural for that sort of stuff to happen. Here in Lincoln, when we first started, our building, our church home, our house, the house of God, only had about 10 people in. And then all of a sudden, 30, 40 people came flooding in really quickly. And so the base level on which they were coming in was 0. Like, there was no church culture, there was no sort of like mature Christian sort of like base level, if that makes sense. And so it looked very like unstable. It was very messy, and it's almost like the book of Corinthians. Church was full of sin, and it is all messy. Some people even said it didn't even look like a church, and so it's really hard. It was a really hard place to be at. However, today, like 7 years on, like most people as they come in are probably 3 or 4 bricks high as they come in. So everyone says, oh, actually, there's certain ways in which we don't behave. There's certain etiquettes and culture that we sort of adhere to. So we don't really gossip here. We've been taught over the years that we don't gossip here. And so that discipleship process is expedited, essentially. It's faster, it's quicker. Now, here's the thing. The problem is that in a lot of churches, those starting bricks, because maybe everyone in the church has been a Christian for 10 years or 20 years or 30 years, the starting, like the lowest common denominator may well be a mature Christian who's been a Christian for 15 years. And so if someone comes in there brand spanking new, to conform to that culture is really, really hard. And to conform to like what these guys are going to tell them, you've got to read your Bible every day, you've got to pray 10 hours a day, you've got to do this and this and this, you know what I mean? Like you've got to fast straight away. Some people manage to fit into that quite well, but the majority of people don't at all. And so they really, really struggle to fit in and be conformed to that culture. And so what you find is that a lot of people leave and then lose their faith again, or they'll go to a church where there's not much culture in that regard. So how do you deal with that scenario if everyone in church, or the majority of people in church, have been Christians for a long period of time and have a certain culture and etiquette that isn't necessarily attractive to the brand new Christian, or puts too much expectations upon them? Well, a good way to do this is for pastor or someone who gets the vision of the church and understands the culture of the church, for someone like that to start a new believers life group or cell group or community inside the church, so that those new believers then are essentially all at the same sort of place, so they don't feel the expectation, the pressure of 10 bricks high. Instead, they're coming into a group where everyone's at 0 bricks high, and so they can sort of grow into that gently instead of being overwhelmed by the culture of the church. That's what it means to make disciples. That's what it means to go on that journey with people. So my top tips for making disciples, really quickly, briefly before we finish. Number one is all Christians, all disciples of Jesus, it's impossible to call yourself a disciple without making disciples. Number two, you need to think long term. Travel with people for 3 years minimum. That's what it means to make a disciple. Number three, you need some sort of course or materials for new Christians who are just coming into the faith. Number four, you should, if it was me, I would say the senior pastor or someone who really, really gets the vision and the culture of the church needs to be discipling new believers. And number five, it usually helps if you're in a really mature, stable church. It really helps to have a new believers life group or community where they can meet with people that are at the same place as them, so that they're not overwhelmed by the pressure and the expectations of joining a big, strong church like that. I hope you have a good rest of the day. The last session that we'll do will be on baptism. Thank you.